After the farewell dinner with my ex-husband, I moved to Oregon alone to start a new life. He in turn fulfilled his dream of marrying his secretary. However, a single casual comment from a guest during their wedding party was all it took for my ex-husband to lose his mind on the spot. I pushed open the heavy glass door of the restaurant of our memories. A set of small brass bells tinkled softly. The familiar aroma of filet mignon with peppercorn sauce, a scent I once considered the smell of happiness, hit me instantly. 8 years ago, Ethan, my husband, had proposed to me at this very corner table. Today, I had reserved the same table and ordered the same steak he loved so much for our final goodbye. On paper, we were about to stop being husband and wife, but this dinner was the last ritual to sever any remaining emotional ties. He arrived 15 minutes late. The white shirt he wore was the same one I had impeccably ironed for him the week before I moved my things out of our apartment. Ethan pulled out the chair and sat down without an apology, without even looking at me. His eyes were glued to his phone, his fingers swiping frantically across the screen. Occasionally, a sly smile would appear on that face I once loved madly. I knew exactly who he was texting. Ashley, his very young secretary, the one who had inserted herself into our marriage. The waiter brought the plates. Ethan's steak sizzled on its cast iron plate, releasing a fragrant steam. He picked up his knife and fork and cut a piece, chewing mechanically. "I ordered what you like," I said, breaking the oppressive silence. "Yeah," he replied curtly, not looking up from his phone. I looked at the man in front of me. His coldness no longer hurt me. It only brought me an immense sense of relief. The glass of red wine on the table trembled slightly. I took a sip. Its bitterness helped to calm me. "Once all the paperwork is done, I've already bought my ticket," I said in a monotone voice. "I'm moving to Oregon as soon as everything is finished." This time, his fingers stopped. He looked up. A fleeting surprise crossed his face before being replaced by his usual indifference. "Oregon. And what are you going to do there?" "My grandmother left me a small house in Willow Creek, a town near the coast. I'm going to settle there." I thought he would ask something more, perhaps a faint attempt to keep me, or at least a clumsy wish for good luck. But no. Ethan just shrugged as if I had just told him the weather forecast. "Whatever you want, it's for the best," he said, and the smile returned. "Ashley and I are also planning the wedding. She deserves a grand ceremony. Ashley's not like you. She knows what she wants and she knows how to make me happy." I almost laughed. He was right. I wasn't like Ashley. I didn't know how to feign weakness. I didn't know how to use tears to demand things. And I certainly didn't know how to sleep with another woman's husband. But I didn't say it. I just nodded. "Well, congratulations to you both." The dinner ended quickly in silence. He didn't even look at me as he got up to pay. He left in a hurry, probably rushing to his secretary who would be waiting for him. I was left alone, staring at my almost untouched plate of steak. I called the waiter and asked for a to-go container, not out of pity, but because I didn't want to waste the last dinner of a marriage. As bland and cold as it had been, it had come to an end. I went back to our apartment, the one that was once our home. The silence was deafening. 8 years ago, Ethan and I had invested all our savings to buy this apartment in downtown Manhattan. I still remembered the day we got the keys. We cried with happiness. We painted the walls ourselves. We chose every piece of furniture together. I thought we would grow old here. I stopped in the middle of the living room. The cream-colored sofa we had argued so much about choosing was now covered with a white sheet. The wall, once filled with our wedding photos, was bare, showing only the nail marks. Everything was still there, but its soul was gone. I started packing 8 years of memories, now reduced to a few cardboard boxes. I opened the closet, my clothes on the left, his on the right. I carefully folded my dresses and blouses. A couple of his shirts were still mixed in with my clothes. I picked them up. The familiar scent of fabric softener still permeated the fabric. That scent used to be synonymous with peace. Now I put them all in a separate bag for their new owner. I opened the bottom drawer of the closet where I kept our keepsakes. A small wooden box contained old photos. The first one we took together in college. Our smiles still innocent. The photo from our wedding day. Me radiant in my white dress. Him looking at me with infinite tenderness. 8 years. Where had that look gone? I didn't cry. My tears had dried up the day I discovered his texts. I just felt a deep exhaustion. I placed the wooden box at the bottom of my suitcase. I wouldn't throw it away, but I would never open it again. It belonged to a chapter of yesterday, a chapter that had died with our marriage. I spent the whole afternoon cleaning. When the apartment was almost empty with only his belongings left, I took out my phone and sent him a message. "I've packed my things. Keep whatever you want of the rest. I'm not taking anything but my clothes and personal items. The shared memories are in the desk drawer. Do what you want with them." A minute later, His reply came as brief and cruel as ever. Okay, thanks. I looked at the apartment one last time. Goodbye. Goodbye to 8 years of my youth. I left the key on the oak coffee table right next to the TV remote. A dry click echoed in the empty room. I dragged my suitcase to the door and slammed it shut behind me without looking back once. I felt light, as if a weight I had been carrying for too long had been lifted from my shoulders. Freedom. I was finally free. The day at the courthouse, the sky over New York was neither rainy nor sunny. The air was humid and dense like my mood months ago, but today, my heart was strangely calm. I wore a simple beige dress and light makeup. I didn't want to look like a victim on my last day as a wife. Ethan was there, too. He wore a suit and his hair was slicked back with gel, but the dark circles under his eyes betrayed his fatigue. Maybe he was exhausted from the legal proceedings, or maybe from pleasing his pregnant lover. An older judge wearing glasses looked at us with compassion. Have you thought this through? Marriage is for a lifetime. Yes, Your Honor, we have, we replied in unison. Everything was quick. Signatures, stamps. The judge declared us divorced. 8 years of life together ended with a thin sheet of paper. I received my divorce decree, a certificate of my single status that felt both heavy and light. Just as we left the courtroom, Ethan's phone rang. He answered hastily, and his tone changed from cold to sickeningly sweet. I'm coming out now, my love. Don't move. Wait for me. He hung up and walked past me as if I were a stranger, rushing out. He was in such a hurry, he almost collided with a woman walking in the opposite direction. He didn't say a single word of goodbye. I stood there watching his back disappear down the hall. I smiled. An ending like that was fine, too. I was in a hurry as well. I had left my suitcases at Jessica's place the day before. Now I just had to pick them up and head to Penn Station. Jessica, my best friend, was already waiting for me. As soon as she saw me, she ran to hug me. Sarah, are you okay? Her voice was filled with concern. I'm fine, I said, patting her back. Better than ever. Jessica looked me up and down and frowned. You look it. Your face is paler than a ghost. Are you going to be all right on your own out there? She pressed a heavy cloth bag into my hand. Here's a bottle of good Oregon Pinot Noir, some cheese from the Tyoke Creamery, and a loaf of artisanal sourdough. I know you might feel a little out of place at first. When you miss home, have some of this so you don't feel so alone. I started to laugh with a lump in my throat. In my worst moment, I still had someone who truly cared about me. Thanks, Jessica. Only you get me. What's to get? She grumbled. Now that you're leaving, you have to live well. Make yourself gorgeous. Get rich and make that bastard die of envy. And don't you ever dare cry over an idiot again. We sat in a coffee shop at the station talking about everything and nothing. Jessica gave me 1,000 pieces of advice from how to find a house to how to be careful with small-town men. She talked so much that I could only nod and smile. I knew she was trying to cheer me up to fill the void of our last moments together. It was time to board. We hugged tightly at the platform entrance. Take care of yourself, she whispered. If anything happens, let me know. You two call me as soon as you get there. She let go, but her expression turned hesitant. Hey, Sarah, there's something I don't know if I should tell you. What is it? I frowned. At this point, what else can I handle? Tell me. Jessica took a deep breath and leaned closer to my ear. Ashley is pregnant. I froze for a second, not from shock, but from the irony. So, that was it. That's why he was in such a hurry to get divorced. That's why he didn't want any of our assets, just for me to sign the papers quickly. Ah, I managed to smile. Well, double the happiness for them. That's not all, Jessica continued, her face full of contempt. They're planning an incredibly lavish wedding. My husband heard it's going to be at the Cressmont Manor. They booked the entire main ballroom. That Ashley wants the wedding of the century to show off to everyone. Typical of a shameless social climber. Let them do what they want, I said, shaking my head. It doesn't matter to me anymore. And it truly didn't. The pain had turned into a scar. Now hearing news about them just seemed ridiculous. A greedy man and a materialistic woman. They were made for each other. But I'm worried about you, Jessica insisted. I have to go, I interrupted her. The train won't wait. I gave her one last quick hug and turned away decisively. I walked through the ticket gate without looking back. I could feel Jessica's eyes following me. Once in my seat, I turned off my phone. As the train left New York City, leaving the gray city behind for the green landscapes of the West, I knew a new life was waiting for me. And in that life, there would be no room for Ethan or Ashley. I took out my phone, broke the old SIM card, and threw it in the trash. I blocked any possible contact with him. A clean break. Goodbye past. The train ride lasted for hours. I barely slept, reading a novel by a favorite author, trying to reconnect with the parts of myself I had set aside. When the train began to slow down, and the announcer called out the station, my heart sped up. I stepped off the train, and the cool, damp Oregon air filled my lungs. It was pure and clean, so different from the city's stale air. The sky was a deep blue without a single cloud and the sun shone brightly but without burning. I gathered my luggage. Everything was unfamiliar. The accent, the people, even the smell in the air, but I didn't feel fear, just a strange excitement. I took a cab to Willow Creek. The driver, a friendly middle-aged man, glanced at my suitcases in the rearview mirror. Moving to Willow Creek or just visiting? He asked with a warm local accent. Moving back, actually, I replied with a smile. I'm taking over my grandmother's house. Well, I'll be. The driver chuckled. Welcome home, Ben. Willow Creek is a beautiful town. You're going to love it. The car left the city behind and entered the countryside. Tall buildings gave way to tree-lined roads, intensely green meadows, and charming stone houses. The landscape was so peaceful that I rolled down the window and took a deep breath. The air smelled of wet grass, damp earth, and flowers. I knew I had made the right decision. The taxi stopped in front of an old stone wall covered in ivy with a faded blue wooden gate. I paid the driver and dragged my heavy suitcase through the gate. My grandmother's house appeared before me. It wasn't a luxurious mansion, but a cozy two-story stone house with a slate roof. What took my breath away was the garden. It was an explosion of color. Climbing roses covered the walls. Hydrangeas of intense blue and violet formed huge clusters, and there was even a small apple tree laden with fruit. Before she died, my grandmother had hired a company to take care of the house and garden. I put the old key in the lock. The heavy wooden door opened with a soft creak. Inside, everything was clean and welcoming. The furniture was solid wood, rustic in style. A stone fireplace dominated the living room next to a wing-back chair upholstered in a floral fabric my grandmother had loved. The late afternoon light streamed through the large windows, casting golden reflections on the wooden floor. I left my suitcase and walked through the house. The small kitchen with its copper pots hanging on the wall. My bedroom on the second floor with a balcony overlooking the garden. Everything was perfectly preserved as if my grandmother knew I would one day return. I opened the balcony doors. The autumn breeze brought with it the scent of roses. I stood there with my eyes closed. All the sorrow and pain of my old marriage seemed to vanish with that breeze. I was no longer Sarah, the betrayed wife. I was Sarah, my grandmother's granddaughter, the owner of this house. I was home. After a week of rest and getting my life in order, I started looking for a job. I had a master's degree in interior design and some experience from New York. I didn't want to look in a big city, but in Willow Creek or a nearby town. I wanted a quiet life, no rush, no competition. I prepared my resume and started sending it to small design studios in the area. Luck smiled on me sooner than I expected. 3 days later, I received an email for an interview at Stone and Timber Design, a small but reputable studio in Willow Creek. I prepared nervously, choosing an elegant pantsuit and reviewing professional terminology. The studio was on a hidden alley behind a bougainvillea. Michael, the owner of the studio, interviewed me. He was about 40 with slightly tousled brown hair and very warm, kind green eyes. He reviewed my portfolio carefully, nodding as he saw my previous projects. Your resume is impressive, Michael said in a deep, calm voice. But why choose a small studio in Willow Creek over a big firm in New York? I smiled and answered honestly. I came back from my grandmother's house. I love the peace of this town. I want to do the work I love, but also have time to tend my garden and enjoy life. I believe the quality of work doesn't depend on the size of the company. Michael looked at me intently and then smiled. I feel exactly the same way. I hate the city. It's too loud. The interview turned into a pleasant chat about design trends and personal tastes. Michael was a kind boss, passionate about his work and very respectful of his employees. The next day, while I was watering the flowers in the garden, the phone rang. It was Michael. Hello, Sarah. I'm calling with good news. Can you start next Monday? We have a project for a small rustic hotel and we need someone with your exquisite taste. I was so happy I almost dropped the watering can. Yes, of course. Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much. I had a job I loved in a place I loved. My new life had truly begun. My new routine was quickly established. I woke up every morning at 6:30, not to the shrill sound of an alarm, but to the birds singing outside my window. I'd walk to the town bakery, buy a fresh croissant and a coffee. The smell of butter and coffee in the morning filled me with energy. I walked to work. The studio was only a 15-minute walk from home. The path was shaded by trees and crossed an old stone bridge over a small river. My colleagues at the studio were very kind. There were only 5 of us, including Michael. They gave me a warm welcome, patiently helped me with some local expressions, and always praised the dishes I sometimes brought for them. Michael was a wonderful boss. He entrusted me with the rustic hotel project immediately, giving me complete creative freedom. The work absorbed me, leaving no time to dwell on the past. On weekends, I no longer had to cook and clean for someone who didn't deserve it. I dedicated my time to myself. I rode my bike along the riverbank, visited antique markets, or simply sat in the garden to read. I started to care for my grandmother's garden. I learned to prune the rose bushes and plant herbs. My hands got dirty, but my heart was at peace. This life was the polar opposite of my 8 years of suffocating marriage. I felt reborn. I laughed more, slept better. On a Friday afternoon, a week before Ethan's wedding, Jessica called me on FaceTime. My God, Sarah, look at you. Are you glowing or is it just me? Your skin is flushed. Your face is so fresh. Does the weather there suit you? I guess so. I laughed. Work is going well. The air is clean. How are you? We talked for a while. Just before hanging up, Jessica hesitated. Hey, Sarah. Next week. Next week is that bastard's wedding. Are you going to be okay? I knew Jessica was worried about my feelings. I looked out the window. The evening sun painted the garden in shades of gold. I'm fine, I said in a serene voice. Next week, I have to visit an antique ceramic workshop. I'm too busy thinking about what kind of tiles to choose for the hotel bathrooms. Wish them happiness. I'm busy planting flowers and working. Jessica looked at me for a long time through the screen and then sighed in relief. Yeah, you're right. Being busy is the best thing. To hell with them. I hung up and continued sketching my ideas. The day of their wedding, I truly didn't care. That day finally arrived in Oregon. It was Saturday afternoon. I had just finished watering the hydrangeas when my phone rang insistently. It was a FaceTime call from Jessica. I smiled, dried my hands on my apron, and accepted the call. Jessica's excited face appeared on the screen. She was at home in her pajamas, but the background noise was a chaos of music and voices. Sarah, what are you doing? Jessica shouted into the phone. I just finished in the garden. Why is it so loud? Are you at a party? No way. My husband is. Jessica rolled her eyes and lowered her voice. He's at that bastard Ethan's wedding with that, __, and I forced him to live stream the whole thing for me so you can get the scoop and have your revenge. With that, Jessica pointed her phone's camera at her husband's phone screen. I didn't need to see. Jessica's shrill voice was enough. Oh my God, Sarah. What a waste of money. My husband says they'd booked the largest ballroom at the Cressmont Manor. Red carpet from the entrance, imported flowers everywhere. They even hired a symphony orchestra. It's insane. I frowned. And how? My husband sent me a picture. Jessica turned the screen to show me a blurry image. That Ashley's dress, they say it's a designer gown with Swarovski crystals valued at tens of thousands of dollars. And she's even wearing a tiara like some fairy tale princess. And to top it off, she won't stop stroking her belly while greeting the guests. You know, to make sure everyone knows. What a shameless woman. I shrugged. And Ethan, he's bursting with pride. Jessica continued indignantly with his white suit, hair full of gel. He's walking arm in arm with her like they're the king and queen of the world. My husband says he has such an arrogant look on his face, as if he's conquered the universe. He probably thinks he's the smartest man alive for marrying a young woman who's going to give him an heir. What a bunch of idiots showing off for the cameras. I listened to Jessica's complaints and just wanted to laugh. I looked at my garden where the red roses were in full bloom. I took a deep breath. The air here was so pure. Hey, Jessica, tell me what you're making for dinner tonight. Jessica went quiet. I'm giving you the gossip of the year and you're asking me about dinner. It's just that their story isn't interesting anymore. I smiled faintly. Let them show off. Let them think they're the best. That's their problem. I have to put a chicken in the oven now. Michael and the team from the studio are coming over for dinner. Jessica stared at me through the screen and then suddenly burst out laughing. Oh, Sarah, you've reached enlightenment. You're right. Why worry about those people? Go roast your chicken and I hope it's delicious. If there are any updates, I'll call you at the next chapter. We hung up. I took off my apron, washed my hands, and started preparing dinner. Their laughter, their luxury, all of that was a world away. And I realized for the first time in 8 years that I didn't feel a shred of jealousy or pain. They just seemed like strangers, and my life was now truly my own. I thought the story of the wedding would end with Jessica's call. I had a wonderful evening with Michael and my colleagues. We drank wine, ate roast chicken with herbs, and had a lively discussion about the hotel project. The work was progressing very well, and Michael kept praising my ideas. But the next morning, just after I woke up, as I was making coffee and stepping out onto the balcony to breathe the fresh air, the phone rang again. It was Jessica. At that hour, it was already mid-afternoon in New York. I was a little surprised. What's up? Another live stream? I joked as I sipped my coffee. But Jessica's voice on the other end wasn't like yesterday's. It wasn't indignant, but filled with a boundless euphoria, as if she'd won the lottery. Sarah, are you sitting or standing? Her voice was a shriek. I'm standing. Why are you so happy? Sit down right now. Sit down because I'm about to tell you something that will knock you off your feet. The greatest drama in history has just begun. My husband just got home and told me everything. I can't stop laughing. Curious, I dragged a chair over and sat down. Okay, I'm sitting. What happened? Haha. Jessica let out a long laugh. It turns out there was an unexpected guest at the wedding yesterday. Guess who? I frowned. How would I know? Your Uncle Lou, your grandmother's friend. I almost choked on my coffee. Uncle Lou, what was he doing there? He doesn't know Ethan at all. That's the beauty of it, Jessica said with a melodramatic tone. It turns out Ethan's father did a small business deal with your Uncle Lou years ago, and they still have a friendly relationship. And you know your uncle, he's a loudmouth, especially when he drinks. He had just gotten back from Oregon from visiting his son and stopped by New York. I started to imagine Uncle Lou with his characteristic booming voice in the middle of that phony wedding. And what happened? I asked, starting to get interested. My husband says that by the end of the reception, Uncle Lou was pretty drunk. He was sitting with some other friends of his and started bragging. Jessica lowered her voice, imitating Uncle Lou. You know what? I just got back from Oregon. I went to see my son and on the way I stopped by Willow Creek, that cute little town near the coast. My heart skipped a beat. Willow Creek, he ran into me. Exactly. Jessica exclaimed. My husband says Uncle Lou continued to tell everyone at the top of his lungs. I ran into little Sarah, my late friend's granddaughter. My God, she's so beautiful and smart. She's living in a gorgeous house with a rose garden that her grandmother left her. She's living like a queen, you know. I was stunned. It was true. I had run into Uncle Lou last week at the town market. He called out to me and we talked for a few minutes. I invited him to the house, but he said he was in a hurry to get to the airport. I never imagined it would end up like this. Jessica kept talking nonstop. Your uncle started telling your life story to anyone who would listen, and with that voice of his, even the tables next to them heard him. A vague sense of unease crept over me. This story told at Ethan's wedding couldn't be just a simple anecdote. My husband says, Jessica continued, getting more and more excited that just as Uncle Lou started talking about you, Ethan and Ashley were thanking guests at the next table. They heard everything word for word. I held my breath. Jessica cleared her throat, continuing her performance. Uncle Lou was shouting, Sarah is a rock star. She's working for a design studio out there. Her boss, a great guy, adores her. Can't stop saying wonderful things about her. Says she just landed them a contract to design a huge hotel. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Smart and hardworking like her grandmother. I could picture Ethan's face at that moment. He who had always belittled my work, who considered me a conformist who lived off him. But wait, Sarah, here comes the best part. Jessica shouted, unable to contain herself. Here comes the climax. A friend at your uncle's table asked him, wow, is the girl that smart? She must be making a good salary, right? And your Uncle Lou answered, waving his hand. Salary? What salary? The salary is for her expenses. Her grandmother adored her. Not only did she leave her the house with the rose garden, she left her a multi-million-dollar inheritance. They say it's a fortune, several $1,000,000. Little Sarah is now a low-key millionaire in Oregon, living the good life free as a bird without having to put up with any jerks. I was speechless. It was true my grandmother had left me an inheritance, but I had never discussed the amount with anyone. I didn't know Uncle Lou knew in such detail, much less that he would blurt it out in the middle of the wedding. Oh my God, Sarah. My husband says that the instant the word millions left your uncle's mouth, Ethan's face went from white to green. He could barely stand. And Ashley next to him had her mouth wide open. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. People at the surrounding tables started whispering. The rumor spread like wildfire. The groom's ex-wife is a millionaire. Turns out the one he just left is actually rich and he's marrying the secretary. The murmuring grew. And you know what? Jessica said with a triumphant voice. Just when Ethan was in shock, realizing he had thrown away a gold mine, your Uncle Lou delivered the final blow. My heart sank. There was more. The rumor was spreading throughout the hall. Ethan and Ashley were paralyzed. Ashley tried to pull Ethan's arm, but he seemed glued to the floor. And then Uncle Lou, after talking about you, continued his conversation with his friend. I could imagine the scene. A strange silence fell around Uncle Lou's table. Everyone strained to hear. Jessica imitated Uncle Lou's voice again. But these days, my friend, there's a lot of deception. If you end up with a gold digger, you're lost. Like, what happened to the groom? This Ethan guy. I flinched. He said it that clearly. Almost. Jessica exclaimed. My husband says your uncle continued. The other day I went to the bank to run some errands and I ran into Bob, the VP of credit, who's a friend of mine. And Bob told me something very funny. He told me that this Ashley, Ethan's secretary, the bride today, went to the bank last week and made a scene. The faces of Ethan and Ashley, according to Jessica's husband's account, were drained of all blood. Bob told him. Jessica continued her performance that this Ashley went to withdraw some money from her savings account. And while she was doing it, she complained to the teller. She was talking so loud the whole bank heard her. She said, I'm so fed up. Really? I thought I'd hit the jackpot with a rich boss, but it turns out it's all for show. We're about to get married and I still have to lend him money. I just lent him $5,000 for the expenses of this wedding. Just my luck. A deathly silence fell over the hall for a moment. Jessica's husband said he could hear the clink of an ice cube falling into a glass. Two explosive truths revealed at the same time in front of hundreds of guests. Truth number 1, the abandoned ex-wife Sarah was actually a millionaire with a house in the Pacific Northwest and an immense fortune. Truth number 2, the new wife, Ashley, who was showing off her $1,000 dress, was actually a gold digger. And the groom, Ethan, who acted so high and mighty, was broke and had to borrow money from his future wife to pay for the wedding. Sarah, Jessica's voice trembled. Ethan couldn't take it anymore. He started to shake. He turned to look at Ashley, and he looked at her as if he wanted to kill her. Right there, I was sitting paralyzed on my balcony in Willow Creek. The cup of coffee in my hand had gone cold. I knew that the best comedy and the worst tragedy had just begun. I remained motionless. The phone pressed to my ear. Jessica's breathing on the other end was ragged, as if she had just run a marathon. My husband says Jessica took a breath that the scene was unforgettable. Ethan was shaking like a leaf. The entire hall, which had been a buzz of music and laughter, fell into a deathly silence. Hundreds of pairs of eyes were fixed on the two of them. I could imagine the humiliation. Ethan, a man who lived for appearances, who always needed to prove his success and power, was stripped bare in front of all his guests and business partners, exposed as an idiot who had been duped by a woman. The look on Ashley's face was priceless, Jessica continued. She tried to grab Ethan's arm, whispering, "Honey, let's go to another table. Everyone's staring at us." But Ethan didn't move. He just stared at her. My husband said his eyes were bloodshot, that he looked terrifying. The champagne flute he was holding started to tremble, the golden liquid about to overflow. And then Jessica lowered her voice as if telling a secret. He yelled. No, he didn't yell. He roared like a wounded animal. Talk. What's this about the $5,000? You dared to lend me money? Ashley, terrified, took a step back. No, honey, he must have been joking. Please believe me. Believe you? Ethan let out a bitter, mocking laugh. So you can play me for a fool? So you can take my money while I've lost everything? Jessica's husband said that Ethan didn't finish the sentence. He couldn't verbalize the truth that he had thrown away a fortune of millions of dollars. That revelation, combined with the deceit before him, completely destroyed his self-control. Crash! Jessica shouted. He crushed the crystal glass in his hand. Sarah, he shattered it with his bare hand. Blood started to gush out, dripping onto the red carpet. I shuddered. I knew Ethan had a temper, but I never thought he could lose control like that. Blood and champagne splattered everywhere, Jessica's husband told her, staining Ashley's $1,000 dress. She let out a scream. Ethan, at that moment, seemed to have gone mad. He looked at his bloody hand and then looked up at Ashley. You lied to me, he bellowed, his voice breaking. It's all your fault. You've ruined me. The rage exploded. The regret for losing me, the humiliation of Ashley's deceit, the fury at realizing he was a complete fool. It all built up and turned him into a madman. He realized on his own wedding day that he had let go of a good, wealthy, and capable wife to end up with a lying gold digger, one who had milked him for every last cent to throw this ostentatious wedding. He had thrown pure gold in the trash to pick up a painted rock. And then I asked, my throat dry. Chaos. Absolute chaos. Jessica's voice still trembled. After yelling, "You've ruined me," he started destroying everything. Destroying everything at his own wedding? My husband says yes, Jessica replied hastily. He swung his arm and swept the tower of champagne glasses off a nearby table. The sound of shattering glass was deafening. He flipped over an entire table full of food, lobsters, seafood. Everything went on the floor. The guests were screaming and backing away in fear. And his parents were white as sheets. They ran towards him. His father tried to hug him. Ethan, what are you doing? Stop it, please. This is an embarrassment. But he pushed his own father away. He was like an animal out of control. He pointed at Ashley, who was paralyzed and trembling in her white dress stained with wine and sauce. Talk. And what about the pregnancy? Did you lie to me about that, too? He yelled. The shout echoed through the hall. That question was the spark that lit the fuse. People started whispering louder. Oh my God, the pregnancy is fake, too. No wonder she was touching her belly so much. It was all an act. What a terrifying woman. Ashley cornered reacted. There was no trace of her fake sweetness left. She screamed back, are you crazy? You dare say my child is fake? Shut up. Ethan swatted her away with the back of his hand. The push was so strong that Ashley in her high heels lost her balance and fell backward. Oh, Jessica gasped. My husband says she fell and hit her stomach on the corner of a decorative table. I held my breath. Even though I didn't like her, a child was innocent. Did something happen to her? Ashley clutched her stomach, pale as wax, screaming in pain. Seeing her, Ethan stopped for a second, probably scared. But just then, Jessica paused for breath. Bob, the bank VP that Uncle Lou had mentioned, who was there as a partner of Ethan's company, came over when he saw the commotion. And what did Bob say? Probably to get on Uncle Lou's good side. He spoke up loudly. Jessica continued, Mr. Stone, calm down. It's true that Miss Miller was complaining at the bank. I myself heard her say you were short on cash and that she had to lend you $5,000. I even have a copy of the bank statement right here. Jessica's husband said that after that statement, the hall erupted. Confirmation from a bank employee right there. Nothing could be more credible. It was the last straw. Ethan had nothing left to lose. His career, his pride, his love, his money. It had all been shattered in one night. He let out one last roar, Jessica said, and flipped the head table where the 7-tier wedding cake was. Frosting flew everywhere. Out. Everyone, get out of here. The wedding is over. The terrified guests stamped for the exit. They weren't just leaving. They were pulling out their phones to take pictures and videos. A wedding of the century, just as Ashley wanted, but a century of disaster. My husband ran out, too, Jessica concluded. He told me that as he was leaving, you could still hear Ethan breaking things and Ashley crying and cursing. A circus. A pathetic circus. Karma is swift, Sarah. I hung up, my soul in turmoil. I went out onto the balcony and watched the roses sleeping under the night dew of Willow Creek. I thought I would be happy to know they had gotten what they deserved, but I wasn't. I just felt a deep weariness and disgust. A life built on greed and lies had self-destructed in an instant. I slept poorly. The chaotic images of the wedding replayed in my head. The next morning, I woke up with dark circles under my eyes. I decided not to listen to any more news from Jessica. Their story for me was over. I needed to focus on my own life. I spent all of Sunday sketching. Work helped me forget the disaster in New York. But at night, when I turned off the computer, my phone buzzed. It was Jessica. I sighed, thinking about not answering, but the ringing was insistent. What now, Jessica? I'm tired. I don't want to know anymore. Wait. Jessica's voice was pure excitement again, just this once. It's the finale of yesterday's episode. I promise that after this you'll sleep like a baby. Fine, I grumbled. Listen, she insisted. My husband just told me. He said that when he went down to the parking garage to get the car, he witnessed a scene even better than the one in the ballroom. I gave in. Okay, 5 minutes. My husband saw Ethan and Ashley screaming at each other in the parking garage. Jessica said her parents were next to them looking like they were at a funeral trying to get her to leave. She didn't go to the hospital. I was surprised after that fall. Not a chance. Jessica laughed scornfully. It was all an act. My husband hid behind a pillar and heard everything. Ashley wasn't pretending to be a sweet victim anymore. She was standing with her hands on her hips, screaming in Ethan's face. Jessica cleared her throat, imitating Ashley. You're insane. You've embarrassed me in front of everyone. You ruined my wedding. Ethan, with his hand wrapped in a handkerchief, blood seeping through the fabric, yelled back. Jessica continued, You're the one who ruined me. You're a liar. You've been stealing from me. And then Ashley started to laugh, Jessica said with contempt. A laugh that made my husband's skin crawl. Steal from you? Do you even have money to be stolen from? Who paid for this wedding, huh? Tell me. My $5,000 wasn't even enough to get started. And my parents had to mortgage their house to pay for this sham so you could look good. You useless man. You're useless. I was frozen. So Ethan had not only borrowed money from her, but had also squeezed her parents dry. He had sunk too deep into the mire of his own ego. My husband says, Jessica continued, that when Ethan heard that, he was speechless. He didn't expect her to throw it in his face so directly. The battle in the parking garage with no audience or cameras was where their true natures came out. There was no love left, only money, lies, and hatred. Ashley's parents, seeing their daughter had let the cat out of the bag, tried to cover her mouth. Jessica went on, "Honey, please be quiet. Let's go home." But she couldn't stop. She pushed her parents away and pointed at Ethan. "I'll tell you one thing. I married you for your money, for your director position, and for this wedding, and now you've destroyed everything." Ethan, recovering from the shock, gritted his teeth. "You dare?" And then Jessica lowered her voice. Ashley launched her final attack. She put her hand on her stomach, but this time not with pride, but as a threat. And she said, Jessica whispered, "Listen to me carefully. This child is yours. Do you want it to live or die? Put the downtown apartment in my name right now and give me $500,000 in cash. If you don't, I'm getting an abortion tomorrow and then I'm going to your company and telling all your partners what kind of man you are." My blood ran cold, using her own child to blackmail him. It was too cruel. "And what did Ethan do?" I asked. My husband says Ethan stood still for a moment and then started to laugh. A laugh even more terrifying than his screams. He laughed hysterically. When he stopped, he looked at Ashley and roared, "Keep dreaming." He pulled out his keys, ran to his car, and even though Ashley tried to block his way, he sped off, almost hitting her, leaving her and her parents alone in the parking garage amidst the wreckage of a luxury wedding. My husband ran off, too. He didn't want to get caught in the crossfire. We were silent for a moment. "Jessica, I have a doubt about the pregnancy." "I suspect it too," she interrupted. My husband says the fall looked bad, but a little while later, she was in the parking garage, screaming with incredible energy. "I suspect the pregnancy is fake, or she just used a pharmacy test to trick Ethan. She used it to force the wedding and now to extort money." I let out a long sigh. "Fake or not, that child was a victim." "Well, Sarah," Jessica said with a tired voice, "let's call it a night for this drama. Two greedy lying people who destroyed each other. Birds of a feather flocked together. Go to sleep. I need it, too. So much drama is exhausting." I hung up. I looked out at the night. Willow Creek was calm. The sound of crickets filled the garden. I realized the storm in New York had passed and it had nothing to do with me anymore. I asked Jessica not to tell me anything more about them. I didn't want the garbage of the past to dirty my present. I threw myself into my work, into the hotel project. But a month later, during one of our calls, Jessica couldn't hold back. "Sarah, I have to tell you," her voice was serious this time. "The situation with Ethan has really blown up." "What else?" "His career is over." My husband says that after the scandal, the videos of him trashing the wedding and screaming at Ashley went viral. Even though they were taken down quickly, all his important partners saw them. And what did they do? Cancelled contracts en masse. His most important partner, a Japanese group, sent him a letter immediately terminating their collaboration. They said they couldn't work with someone of questionable morality, who can't control his emotions, and who treats his family so cruelly. I remained silent. It was inevitable. For a businessman, reputation is more important than money. When he lost the big contract, the company went under. Jessica continued, "The key employees, the good ones who worked with you, left in a group. They said they couldn't work for a crazy boss who also owed them money. They left and took the clients with them so quickly." I was surprised. "Yes, now he's desperate." My husband says he spends his nights taking small clients out to dinner, trying to salvage what's left. He's drinking so much that last week he was admitted to the ER for a stomach hemorrhage. He was there for 2 days and then escaped to keep drinking. But it's useless. No one wants to board a sinking ship with a captain with that kind of reputation. I shook my head. The career Ethan was so proud of, the one he used to humiliate me, was crumbling because of his ego and bad decisions. "I'm going to hang up, Jessica," I said. "I have a meeting with Michael." "Yeah, you're right," she agreed. "Those people don't deserve another minute of your time. You just live well." I hung up. I looked at the 3D design of the hotel lobby on my screen. I had chosen a rustic and cozy style with local ceramics and oak wood. I felt proud of my work. It was real. It created value, unlike Ethan's House of Cards career. Several months passed. I finished the hotel design and began supervising the construction. The work was intense but exciting. One night, Jessica called. Her voice sounded strange, almost compassionate. "Sarah, today my husband saw Ethan." "Where?" "Not at a bar," she said softly. "At a street market in the afternoon. My husband went to buy a few things and saw a thin man looking like a homeless person hastily eating a sandwich in a corner. He was curious, took a closer look, and realized it was Ethan. Thin and looking homeless. Is he that bad?" My husband was stunned. He says Ethan was skeletal with several days' worth of beard, dirty hair, and wrinkled, stained clothes. He was eating the sandwich anxiously, looking around fearfully. "He looks 10 years older." His company is completely bankrupt. He's drowning in debt. Do you know where he got the money for the wedding? From loan sharks. He thought he would pay it back with Ashley's parents' money or with new contracts, but everything fell apart. Now the loan sharks are after him. And our apartment, he mortgaged it for the wedding. The bank has already foreclosed and auctioned it off. My husband says he's living in hiding, that he doesn't dare go to his parents' house so as not to involve them. He's sleeping on the couch of his sealed off. Last week, some thugs found him and beat him up in front of the building. Hearing that, I no longer felt satisfaction, only a bitter sadness. After all, he was the man I had loved for 8 years. My husband hesitated. Jessica said he was going to approach him, but Ethan realized he was being watched, got scared, threw down his sandwich, and ran off like a true fugitive. And Ashley, after the scandal, the pregnancy turned out to be fake, just as we suspected. No one wants to hire her. Her parents, ashamed, sold their house to pay off the wedding debts and took her with them. They say they're having a very hard time. The two people who had reveled in my pain were paying a very high price for their greed. Life is fair sometimes. I hung up, my heart heavy, but that sadness was fleeting. I looked at my garden where the lavender bloomed in a sea of violet. I took a deep breath. Their life, as tragic as it was no longer mine. A week later, I presented the final hotel project to the investor, a very demanding Swiss man. I had prepared everything in detail. When I finished, the investor, who according to Michael never smiled, stood up and applauded. "Marvelous, Miss Hayes," he said with admiration. "This is exactly the soul I was looking for. You have done an excellent job." Michael beside me smiled proudly. The project was approved without a single change. Back at the studio, Michael told me, "Sarah, you've amazed me. The client is delighted. He's going to recommend us for a much larger resort in Provence." It was a team effort, Michael, but the vision was yours. To celebrate, the company has decided to give you a 30% raise effective this month, and you deserve a week of paid vacation. Go wherever you want and recharge because the Provence project is waiting for you. I was so happy I wanted to jump in the middle of the street. A raise, a vacation, and most importantly, my work was recognized. I realized that by leaving Ethan, I hadn't lost anything. I had found myself and so much more. I decided to use my vacation to travel down the California coast. I rented a small car and drove on back roads, staying in rustic inns and goat cheese and toast with olive oil. I met new people. We talked about wine, art, and the beauty of life. I realized my value wasn't in being someone's wife or in the money I had, but in my independence, in my ability to create my own happiness. When I returned to Willow Creek, my garden was even more beautiful. I signed up for advanced French classes and a pottery workshop. I wanted to keep learning. One afternoon, while reading in the garden, Jessica called. We talked often, but only about my life, her work, her kids. We never mentioned Ethan or Ashley again. They had disappeared from my life like a nightmare that fades at dawn. I watched the sun dance on the leaves. I understood that those 8 years of marriage, though painful, had taught me a lesson, and the divorce wasn't an end. It was a beginning, the door to a new path, a path filled with sunshine. I smiled. I knew my future on that path would only get better.